All right. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see everybody here this evening. I'm going to call the Moab City Council meeting to order on February 21st, 4th, 2026 at 6:00 p.m. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Tani, would you lead us? I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Tani. We've got a few missing folks tonight. Colin is not available and Michael is also not available, but Danny is here. If we have any city manager questions, she's happy to respond if you have questions for city manager. She's number 2 tonight. Well, number 1 tonight. All right, any public comments? All right, going once. No public comments. We have no department updates. We have 2 items on our consent agenda: approval of the minutes from February 10th, 2026, regular city council meeting, and the approval of the bills of the city of Moab in the amount of $325,562.04. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Caitlin.
Second.
Second by Miles. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right. Next up is Alexi, and we will be considering the WUI is what it's called. It's the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code. We heard a little bit about this, I think, at our last meeting. Basically, what this is coming to getting us in compliance with state code.
Yes, exactly. So what I'll do is I'll just walk through what the context for what the WUI is, the Wildland Urban Interface, what our requirements are, what our choices are, and then I will leave it up to you for discussion, or I'll answer questions. Okay. So this is essentially where kind of our built environment, our homes and businesses and things interact with the more wild landscape surrounding us, is the Wildland Urban Interface. And this is where a wildfire could jump to an urban area. This is just an example of what it would look like. Obviously, that's a little different from us, in that our greener spaces tend to run through our town instead of surround our town. And that's part of why we're proposing we handle this the way we are, given the kinds of risks that we have in Moab. So I'll get to that. Starting with House Bill 48, this outlines a number of responsibilities. The ones we're most interested in tonight are the ones that city and city residents have. But in order to explain this, I'm going to include a little bit here about what is not on the table tonight. The Department of Natural Resources created a map of high-risk properties. That is something that is at the state level. It is separate and it is not something we make a decision on. But people who are in these high-risk properties will have assessments on those properties, and there is a fee associated with that, which the county would collect. And can also collect their own costs for implementing this requirement from the state. And then they also have residents and would adopt and have already adopted the WUI code and can adopt a map for where that applies. We're doing that tonight. We are required to adopt the Wildland Urban Interface Code from 2006 that Utah has designated for us. And that's not something we make a decision on. What we do get to decide is where it applies. And then from there, where it applies informs where it would be enforced. While we were going through this with Planning Commission and consulting with other stakeholders like the fire department, REM to REM, and the county emergency management or manager, we were looking a lot at where we have fire risk and trying to match that to the level of preparation that we have. So some of this is handled again at the state level for high risk properties. Where we come in as a city is moderate to low risk properties and trying to match our level of preparation to those levels of risk. In order to do that, we need to know what's in the code. So new construction must use fire-rated construction materials according to the code, provide water supply and access, establish defensible space prior to the occupancy of the building, and manage vegetation. The requirements for existing construction are a little different in that it would apply to new things like new additions or construction, or if a roof was being 25% replaced within a 12-month period. And then there's some other requirements that could come into play for those properties as well, like fire arresters on fireplaces or barbecues to manage sparks, defensible space, and other potential hazardous conditions. So that's what the code would do. And then we then get to look at where the map locations are. I'm going to go through a few different versions of this to let you understand the thought process on the recommendation. This is the Utah High-Risk Wildland Urban Interface map. This is the map they are currently using for the Moab area. In our consultation with stakeholders locally, this didn't match where we were seeing risk. So this is not a map that we've decided to build off of, but this is that map in a larger context of a structural exposure score, which was the recommended guideline for us in developing our own map. But again, this doesn't really reflect where we've been seeing risk in our own community. It's identifying rockier areas farther out as higher risk, and some of the areas closer to town and next to the sloughs as lower risk. And that doesn't match with what rim to rim put into our sorry, it's delayed. I might have to stop sharing and try sharing. Oh, I'm kicked out of the meeting now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, why?
Yeah.
I will be joining. So we have the map that you have seen previously from rim to rim, which was in our community wildfire preparedness plan. Thanks.
Don't know what happened. I don't do that. Technology.
Yeah. Minor delay. Okay, so this might look familiar. This is what was in our preparedness plan. So it does not align with what we were seeing in some of the state maps. Again, we're seeing more risk around the sloughs and around the creeks. And that also aligns with what we were seeing in historic fire. So this was a map put together by our GIS specialist, Nick, of where we have been seeing fires historically. Again, sloughs, creeks, areas with vegetation that are next to water in particular seem to be at risk. And that wasn't matching up with the maps that we were seeing. So the state gave us this requirement to adopt the code, and the deadline was at the end of last year. So we're trying to move this through now. And the recommendation, based on consulting with the fire department and rim to rim and our city attorney and county management, was that we don't identify properties for the application of this particular code. It doesn't seem to match up with the kinds of risks that we're seeing, and it's possible that we can look at other mitigation measures for what we're seeing. The code itself is designed more towards like a forested area that you might find in like a canyon in the mountains, as opposed to the kind of fire risk that we're seeing running through town on the creeks. That said, there are other options. You know, we talked about having different tools for different levels of risk. In addition to that, there is possibility that the code from 2006 will be updated. That can change. And they even recommend that we update our map every 3 years, and we can do that more often. So if we reevaluate in further discussions with our stakeholders, we can add properties to this map. But at this time, it felt like that this code it would be premature to apply it to properties here, and it might be excessively burdensome to do it on this timeline. So that's the recommendation from staff. And then to run you through where this has been, this started in March with the signing of HB 48. From there, we went through the process to adopt our community wildfire preparedness plan, which was part of our preparedness and separate from HB 48. From there, we started consulting with stakeholders. It went to the Planning Commission earlier this month. They recommended approval of the map with no properties identified and the 2006 code. And tonight, it's before you to consider this as well. So I'd be happy to answer questions.
Questions for Lexi?
Not really.
Motion. I think the important point here is, I think the state, they don't know all the communities in town. And so it's just like, this is what we think, but I think they really want communities to develop their own maps that match what we need. So it seems like it's a good way to go at this point so that we can develop our own map down the road.
Yeah, I was privy to the planning or the P and Z meetings, and it was discussed at length. And I think that was kind of the decision was the state we should tailor our wildfire preparedness to our community rather than letting the state apply these sweeping restrictions that could be quite cost prohibitive to some of the homeowners living in that area. I think it makes a lot of sense. Our wildfire risk and the type of WUI and urban interface that we have is very different from something you'd get in a pine forest. So it makes a lot of sense to do our own thing.
All right, I'll move to approve the Moab City Ordinance 2026-03, an ordinance enacting section 15.08.011 under Title 15, Chapter 15.08, the Moab Municipal Code to adopt the 2006 edition of the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Motion by Jason, second.
Second.
Second by Tawny. Discussion, Jason?
No, thank you for doing this.
Tawny?
No.
Anybody else? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just said thank you.
Oh, anybody else? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Alexi.
Thanks.
Next we have item 5.2, consideration of phase 1 development agreement for 57 West Cane Creek Boulevard, parcel 010001-0200 between Amasaback Apartments LLC and the city of Moab. And I see Amanda is here. Thank you. If we have any questions for her, but basically this is a development agreement for that we already have a development agreement, and this is the LLC has their own development agreement that we're considering tonight, correct? And the planning commission did review this and had given it a positive recommendation as well. So go ahead, Joanna.
Okay, that was a really nice recap. We are looking at 57 West Cane Creek, the Amasa project. A little more background. So the omnibus, as we've called their first development agreement, was approved January 27th by you all. In that agreement, they can negotiate subsequent DAs. So phase 2 and phase 3 will also be likely coming back for their separate DAs. When we negotiate, agree upon, and approve their final plat of each phase and their subsequent DA, then the lots from that phase will be pulled out of the omnibus DA and be housed within their subsequent DA. As the mayor mentioned, Planning Commission has forwarded a positive recommendation, and since we've seen you last, their preliminary and final plat and plans have been approved by Planning Commission and administratively through us.
Question.
Yes.
So the DA that we approved in January, is that cover just phase 1 or all the phases?
That covers all the phases until they are taken out
Okay.
through their new DA. But when we take them out, the negotiation still stays the same. So
Gotcha.
our concessions are going to be the same and our benefits are gonna be the same as initially agreed upon in the omnibus DA. So as a reminder, our concessions were front yard setback, waiver of that active employment household requirement, a custom process, and then a custom parking requirement calculation. And then our benefits specific to this phase are 50 units of 50% AMI to 25% AMI. Did you have something to
I
add?
did.
Yeah.
That's okay, really quick. So as a part of this process, this is atypical to our normal process, but this exercise is for the benefit of the development and their structuring for lending and investment interests. So while it's not essential to what our typical process will require, they've elected to negotiate in the global DA for this opportunity that now their investors and lending agents can have that extraction where it is just the phase in which they're a party to that they're approving. Our applicant could probably talk a little bit more about the intent behind that, but I can see that this is obviously a lot of depth of the negotiation. But this is a fixture that is helping them cure what they need to from a financial perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So as stated, this was laid out in the omnibus DA that this was a possibility for them to pursue. The differences between the two agreements are different party names. Our first agreement was with Amasa Holdings. This agreement's with Amasa Apartments. The custom process section that was outlined in the omnibus DA has now been moved to the recitals section as it's already happened. We've added the section that removes the lots, and then we added another section to make sure that the common spaces are accessible and that all the phases are still part of one larger project. Okay. And then I have a little bit of housing analysis. I'm hoping to bring more of this to you guys. So in the projections put forth in the 2023 Affordable Housing Plan, we'll need 500 new units by 2030 between the below 55% AMI, and then 1,159 by 2040. So if all the units that are currently vested in the city for people making 55% AMI or below, then we'll have 194 units, which leaves us with 306 that still need to be produced in the city or in the county. We're working right now with the county to get their data so that we can get better data for you to see actually what that gap might be. But that's where we stand with the information that we have right now.
And that's inclusive of everything in the pipeline.
Yes, including this project.
Within the city limits.
Correct, yes.
Right. Okay.
Is that it?
Yes.
Do we have, okay, so Miles, I think, you were gonna recuse yourself from this
Yes, I
discussion?
will recuse myself from this. Yeah.
Usually we have you, sit in the audience. I can do that. Just so you're not tempted.
So
All right, questions for staff or Amanda?
No, I don't think. So I'll go back to the parking stall guy. I'll be that, when you go to those concessions, when it says like phase 3, 1 parking stall. So is it, when it goes to phase 3, is it 1 parking stall per unit, no matter how many bedrooms they are?
Correct.
Okay.
And with that, this particular agreement, as it is just phase 1, this agreement will only be specific to that.
So when it comes back to phase 1 and phase 2, we can address,
Phase 2 and 3.
or phase 2 and 3, we
Yeah.
can address like the Parking stall.
Correct. I mean, in that negotiation of the DA does, as my understanding, open the platform for what those will be. In that this DA will, in all intents and purposes, replace the prior global agreement.
Mhm.
That negotiation platform, I believe, is open. But our intent is basically the original agreement shall preside until another agreement comes forward. So if on phase 3, the applicants choose the global DA is sufficient, they don't want to go through another DA, that concession would prevail. So it's only if they were to come and renegotiate a subsequent DA that we would then have a negotiating element at that phase.
Can you explain kind of the logic of why you would say 1.5 stalls for 2-bedroom plus, but then in following phases, take away that concession of 1.5 and just say 1?
That might be better suited to the applicant of what their negotiation approach was. That was the requested concession, but it was to satisfy what will be ultimately the overall parking requirements. How they intend to, because again, it's not, it's preliminary. We don't know what will be phase 3, but intended to be smaller units as I understand it. So studios, 1 bedroom.
Yeah, I remember we kind of talked about that,
But yeah, that's
but
kinder to what our variable parking requirement is for our AEH provisions.
Mhm.
But those are like you're saying, right? In this instance, it was negotiated regardless of bedrooms. In our AEH, it is per bedroom that gives you
Right.
a variable parking count versus a static.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think that's where I'm kind of hung up on it, is like, there's varied according to bedrooms. And then when you go to these following phases, we've kind of thrown that out the window and just said it could be 2-bedroom plus and still only have 1 parking stall,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So, that's the part that I'm kind of like, how do you intend to accommodate the parking,
Mhm.
for that phase 3?
Yeah, Amanda, do you
Yeah.
want to come up?
Thank you for having me, Mayor and
You bet.
council and men and women. So yeah, that's a great question. The practical reality of phase 3 is that we can build up to 12 units on phase 3. So at 1.5 times 12, that's 18 parking stalls. With the concession that we've requested, it would be 12 parking stalls instead of 18. So it's a difference of 6 parking stalls. Right now, the way we're setting up the agreement is that basically anyone who lives on this Amasa Apartments parcel can park anywhere. So they're not precluded from just parking in front of their units. So we feel that by building, and actually we will, so far we're already in design for phase 2. We are exceeding the 140 that the omnibus agreement has permitted us. We're actually around 148. Obviously there's still time to flesh out permits and things like that in the design, but we do think we will exceed that. Our goal with designing the site and asking for that concession is that right now the property is zoned for 100 units. If we were going to be constrained by having to make space for 6 more stalls, and again, we're going to exceed it, so I don't think there will be an issue, but it just felt like by having that ability to go less on parking, we could build more units, which we know that Moab really desires. So that was kind of the thought with asking for that concession of 6 stalls.
No, yeah, and I understand that. I just, I worry about the reality of the situation, like if you have a 2 or 3 bedroom unit and you have, depending on who's living there, and you have people with, 2 cars or 3 cars or whatever, which is rural living, a lot of people to get places, have cars, if it was in downtown Salt Lake City or someplace else, it could be like, oh yeah, I get it. And so my concern is that after your project's going to get built, which I think is a great project, don't get me wrong on that, but then is the city going to be overwhelmed by people parking on the street, people parking everywhere, are we going to start getting lots of concerns about people who do live there not being able to find a place to park, and then they're parking in other areas that impact impact the locals, or the residents in those areas, because I know a few times that there's been like cars that have, like, especially when Old King Creek was there was a few cars that just lived on the side of the road, like lived, they never moved, and stuff. So it concerns me that, so that's just a concern of mine. I think that this is still a good project. And if you're saying that you are going to be working towards, having more parking areas, I would encourage that, because I think that, while a lot of people are like, a lot of families only have one car, I think there's a lot of families that have two cars, because you have to have two cars when you live in as remote as we are, and people getting places and stuff. So that's just, I don't know. I feel like something that could come back and bite the city if people are parking everywhere and get lots of complaints and stuff. So anyway, but I do think it's a good project. If you are working towards that, then
Yeah, phase two.
I will take you on your word that that's happening.
Well, in phase two, I believe you guys will probably see phase two DA in front of you all, maybe in the next coming months. And that will show the additional parking that we're gonna be adding beyond the 140 that has been promised in the omnibus agreement. And then phase three, just kind of as a reminder of this project, we initially bought these units because we really wanted to actually preserve them, and in 10 years when their land use restriction expires, to turn them into a for sale affordable product. It's been really challenging to make that happen. So the phase three is really a desire to make a for sale product on those corners. That's going to be tricky just because financing for sale is very tricky, and they're in kind of that 1-bedroom studio size. Actually, there is availability in the Moab market right now of units that have been on for longer than a year. So we're trying to find how to bring the cost down so that these come in at the market below what the product that has been out there, so that they actually can be purchased. And so it's not to say we're not going to get to phase three, but I think there will be time as well to negotiate on phase three specifics once the designs are, I think, a little bit clearer.
And I do want to say this is a good project. Thank you for doing it in Moab. Thank you for building these, because we obviously need it and stuff. So I don't want to I want to let you know I am supportive of the project. It's still a concern. So
Understandable. Yeah, no, I completely hear it. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Motion?
I can. Okay. I motion to approve the phase one development agreement for 57 West King Creek Boulevard, parcel 01-0001-0200 between Amasa Apartments LLC and the city of Moab, Utah, with or without modification. Well, sorry. Period. Okay.
All right, Caitlin, thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Tani, thank you. Discussion, Caitlin?
No, I'm excited about this project. I think we've all seen it. I mean, even just being on staff when we started talking about how the lure was coming up, I think to see what the product is and how this project is going to be given a major facelift and better utilization of space is going to be really exciting for this community. So thanks.
Bonnie?
No, I think it's a really good project. It's gonna be nice to see that all the empty space that's been there for a long time, be able to help our housing issues.
Okay,
Go ahead. Do you have a timeline?
So we're working actively to try to close as soon as Friday or Monday. We have building permits, which is very exciting. I guess we don't have building permits. We have approval for building permits. We need to pay some fees and then get building permits. But I think construction could start as early as next week.
sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, motion by Caitlin, second by Tani. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Amanda. And I too am excited for this project. I remember, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, that the owners at that time they proposed building apartments on that open space. And there was a big community outcry, and the council at that time voted it down. And unfortunately, but happy that it's moving forward now. I think having those affordable homes, apartments in downtown, close to town, is going to be a great asset for our community.
Thank you. And I know I don't want to go over, but I just really want to thank Corey and Johanna, because they have really been so helpful navigating a very tricky legal process with our investors and our funders on this. So we really appreciate all of the support that they've provided as well.
Great. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next up, consideration of an RFP for proposals for corporate sponsorship opportunities in Moab. And Nathan Brackett, our city attorney, is going to present this to us. And I think you guys have all had a chance to read through the RFP. Basically, all we're considering tonight is a request for proposals for corporations that are interested in being sponsors with Moab. It's kind of like a partnership is what I'm guessing. So Nathan, are you there?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Can we see
Okay.
you too? No.
I can see you. I have my camera on. I'm not sure if you can see me or not, but so this was actually Michael's idea. Obviously Moab's a unique town. It's a special town in that way, and you're in a position where you may have some corporate sponsors that may be willing to work with you. Corporate sponsorship is not new. I believe Colin today actually sent around an article on it that I thought was very well done. For instance, I know, so Michael asked us to look into it at our firm, which we did. We put together this proposal. And Michael's thought was obviously Moab. One of the things that makes Moab unique is that it's a 4x4 Mecca. And so his thinking was, well, let's do a 2-year pilot program, get an RFP out there, and then see what we get. And obviously with this type of RFP, we're not obligated to pick anybody. And essentially we're just kind of casting a broad net, and we'll entertain whatever offers people may get. And one of the things that our firm looked at when we were investigating this is what other cities have done things like this. So for instance, Sturgis in South Dakota is obviously a motorcycle mecca. So there, I think Harley Davidson signed a 75-year deal with Sturgis for some sponsorship opportunities there. So as I was putting this together, that was kind of what was in the back of my mind, recognizing it's a different state with different laws and totally different dynamic. But this sort of thing has been done. Michael thought that it would be worth doing an RFP and seeing what happens. In particular, he thought it would be good getting something out in advance of the Easter Jeep Safari, although that's not, I believe, a city-sponsored event, that there would be sponsors may have some interest in lining something up like that so they could announce it there. But because this is something that we haven't done before, the thought is this would be a temporary pilot program. We'd see how it goes and you could reassess. And of course, it would ultimately be up to the council to determine whether or not it wants to proceed based on whatever proposals it gets. It's under no obligation to actually enter into a contract by issuing the RFP. One thing I would say is when we were working this draft, I think the initial idea was to have this approved at the first meeting of the month. And so the deadlines in here probably need to be updated. I think this was the earlier draft that we had prepared, and it doesn't look like so for instance, that had the RFP being issued on February 13th. Obviously we're past that. So if this is something the council would want to entertain, consistent with Michael's desire to have something done by the Easter Jeep Safari, I would suggest having the RFP go out tomorrow, having the respondents submit questions by March 4th, having responses due on, say, March 6th, and then that way you guys could act on it on March 11th, and that would give us some time to execute a contract before the Easter Jeep Safari. But that being said, if the contract takes too much time, I wouldn't make the Easter Jeep Safari a hard deadline. I'd focus on making sure we get the contract done correctly and legally. So I'm happy to present more, but that's a quick overview of it, and I don't want to take up more of your time if you've already read it.
Thanks, Nathan. I do think the timeline is a little tight to get something in place before the Jeep Safari. I think there's a lot of discussion here. So if we consider and approve this, we'll have to really think about this timeline, because I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, and we can change the timeline too. That was just
Okay.
that was just Michael's thought, is it would be good to get it by then, but if not, we can modify the timeline to whatever you want.
I guess,
Questions? Go ahead, Caitlin.
yeah, while we're talking about timeline, I had kind of an opposite thought about Jeep Safari. I think actually for us to leave this open through Jeep Safari gives us more opportunity to advertise it specific to vendors, businesses, corporations that will be in town, which relatedly is like even just another question of whether or not we can pick more than one corporate sponsor. If so, why? I think I'm really excited about this. I think it presents a lot of opportunity for the city to become partners with our business community and be able to advertise because they advertise about Moab, whether it's officially our name or not. But I guess that is one of my questions too, is, I mean, typically RFP, you're picking the best proposal, but in thinking about scope and especially with the city initiatives that it could support, do we want to limit ourselves to just one corporate sponsor for all of those things? Do we want to limit I think all of my questions that I would spill out after this is kind of like along the lines of feeling like a more comprehensive policy. I would love as a next step. I've kind of been waffling on whether that needs to come before or after the RFP. I think running the RFP as a pilot makes a lot of sense because we just don't even know what we're going to get necessarily. But yeah, thinking about more breadth of sponsors for different things, looking beyond. Moab is certainly a motorized vehicle community, but we are also more than that. And I think there are a lot of outdoor rec and corporations that would love to sponsor Moab outside of this specific category of the RFP. So I'll pause there. Those are kind of some of my considerations.
Who else? Go ahead, Miles.
I'll echo a lot of Caitlin's thoughts in that regard, and specifically with the thought of if we are to have a sponsor, I would expect that to be kind of like a larger investment if we were not allowed to, during their period of sponsorship, develop other relationships. Because I could see like there are a lot of projects that we would all love to see happen, but are hard to find funding for, such as like a skate park or something like that. And I would love to see somebody step up and sponsor that. And I think that could be really beneficial for our community. I would just, I kind of echo the little bit of caution with this in that, like, I think there's just a lot of variables involved with it, and being able to like, I'm not totally against putting out the RFP, but I would absolutely like to make sure that there are going to be points of review for council after the RFP, and making sure that that's not just like an administrative process after that point.
Right.
So yeah, the council would have to approve whatever proposals you would get, and there's some review criteria there. And to answer, or to at least address some of those questions, we can absolutely do whatever you want here. I mean, the real rubber will hit the road when it comes to what you pick, and then making sure that that's legal and we can do it. I think that when Michael and I were discussing this, the idea of doing a policy first, which is something we could do, but I think as was noted, the challenge with that is we haven't done this before, so we don't exactly know what to draft the policy to do. I mean, we could always see what other cities have done and take their policies, but every city is kind of unique. And so we could have this be a broader proposal and for multiple different types of industries to sponsor Moab for different things. I think that our thought was that gets kind of complicated because the type of RFP that you do for, say, mountaineering or whitewater rafting would be different than, say, what you do for what we've done here was 4x4. So I think since the idea was that this would be a pilot program, we'd start off with maybe a limited scope and see how that goes, but we could certainly modify that if the council so desires. And also the other point was something we discussed as well at the staff level, was that if you break up the sponsorship to multiple different things, the chances of getting a big sponsor diminish because it's the exclusivity that costs more, for lack of a better term.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think that, I agree 100% like what Nathan said. And, this RFP that's before us now, I don't think there's any harm with changing those dates, and throwing this out there and seeing what comes up, because it still has to come back to us, and we don't have to accept it, even no matter what comes back to us. And when we get something back, we may be able to go, oh, this works for us, this doesn't work for us, and we can not accept the RFP and tweak it and put it back out there again and stuff. But I think, if we try to look at this, like you said, we've never done this before. And the current RFP, I think, acknowledges that, and acknowledges that we can accept a proposal or not accept it and then tweak it and put it back out again. But I think like putting it out there now, we're not at risk of losing anything. We're not at risk of entering into a contract that we don't want to enter into. We still have those safeguards. So I would say let's change the dates that Nathan recommended, put it out there and see what comes back. Even though it's a short time period, we can see what comes back, and I kind of like I was talking to another council member about it today, stuff. It was kind of like the sidewalks, we put this initial bid out there and nothing came back. So we brought it back in, changed it, we tweaked it around a little bit, we put it back out again, because, and I think that this is a very similar process, that we can do, like we can do that. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Tony, what do you have to say?
I don't see any harm in putting this out there. I think Jason's right. We need to change the dates on it, make it a little more realistic. And I would like to see it be a little more broad, just because Moab has so many different types of outdoor recreation. And I think this kind of limits us to one particular type. And I'd like to see that portion be a little bit broader and not just strictly for motorized recreation.
Caitlin, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I agree with that, Connie. I think either I'd want for us to open it up and see what we get across the board, across a variety of uses, or if we're wanting to, especially because I know that we kind of first started talking about this in the context of the mat. So if we keep it to vehicle sponsorship, I would want the scope of potential city initiatives to be kind of rolled back, like thinking about car company as a corporate sponsor to a housing project is a little bit too broad of a, I don't know. Yeah. So I think I'm more in alignment of just putting it out and seeing fully what we get across all of our kind of desired city initiatives. I think one of my other questions that I think will come up when thinking about evaluating financial benefit to the city is whether it makes sense to have kind of like a ballpark valuation of what we're expecting. I think I think it's gonna be hard to evaluate, and I guess we don't really even know, but I think even asking like the annual value of sponsorship from applicants might be useful. But I think it's going to be really hard to evaluate, like if a corporation that we really like only offers us $10,000, but a corporation that we don't Love offers us $500,000 worth of sponsorship, then, how do we weigh that? So that might be another recommendation of some kind of like loose ballpark or question about that. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but
Well, no, I had the same question when looking at how we evaluate the scoring. It's like, I don't know how we would do that. I mean, it seems pretty vague. So I think I think we just change the dates, go for what our attorney and city manager have proposed and see where it goes and go from there. I'd like to recommend that we open this up for more than just a week. Right now it's just a week. I think that's too short of a period of time to get, to reach out. I mean, we've got to get the information out there. We can't just, just go with one and, that's approached us and, thinking that's going to be it. I think we need to give it a lot more time. And I don't know, I mean, I was thinking at least 2 weeks. You guys might have other ideas. And then the issues in between, the other, the evaluation and that kind of thing. I'll leave it up to Nathan and Michael to figure out those dates, but I think the soonest that we could consider any response would be the 14th of April, which is the first meeting we have in April, which would be after, of course, the Jeep Safari. That's what I'm thinking. And Nathan, what do you think? What are you hearing here?
It's entirely a policy call. I'll do whatever you want. I will say though that I want to make sure I understand. So if you want to have responses due by the 14th, and my suggestion would be that we get it out as soon as possible if you want people to have as much time to respond. So if we were to have responses due by March 31st.
Well, actually, what I was thinking, Nathan, was what I have, and you guys tell me if you want it to be longer, is we put it out for 2 weeks. So RFPs would be due March 10th. And then you guys would do whatever you need to do, shortlist interviews, however, that process is. And then it wouldn't come back before us as a council until our first meeting in April. But I don't know, do you guys want it to be long? You want it to RFP open to be longer than 2 weeks?
I do, specifically because Jeep Safari is a month away. I don't think I guess I'm curious, Nathan, if you can tell us why there is a time pressure to get this done before Jeep Safari. I assume so so the city can announce that, but I'm kind of feeling like it is going to bring in more applicants and kind of an opportunity to market if this is still open during Jeep Safari, so we can
Oh, I see what you're saying. So maybe have the application period go through Jeep Safari. So April 7th would be the closing.
Yeah.
And then the process would continue for another 2 weeks. And so we would have it on our April 28th meeting if we could get through everything. I think what do you guys think about that?
I think that's reasonable.
Then it's not so rushed. I mean, Michael's out. He won't be back till next week. I think having it open through, I think that idea is a really good one. There might be other sponsors that hear about it that would be interested. So we're opening it up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this feels really kind of rushed. So I would rather have it a little more thought out.
So what was the original
Timeline
the original timeline
was,
was,
it's
It's
issued
what's
the
in there
RFP on the
now.
13th.
Yeah, we were thinking it didn't get on the calendar for your first meeting in February. So, I mean, it is an accelerated timeline. To answer the question, I think, and there is no right or wrong answer to this. Let me just be clear. I think the thinking is that the thinking I think was that the sponsors may actually have more of an interest in getting something in place before Easter Jeep Safari so they could announce it at Easter Jeep Safari. But this was in the context of this being a four-wheel drive specific RFP. And that's another question I would have is if it's going to be broader than that, and I'm not quite sure if the council reached a decision on that. This RFP would need to be rewritten because right now it's specific to a four-wheel drive corporate sponsor. So if you want to make it broader, I would have to probably redraft it and then bring back another RFP for you to consider at your next meeting.
What was the date of the modified date of decision?
It would be 7 days. So it'd be 7 days from, if they put the RFP out tomorrow,
No,
it would be a week,
no, that's when the RPs are due.
in a week,
Yeah, but then the decision would be what was the
our next
date?
meeting.
March 11th.
March 11th.
That way, and the reasoning for that would be that would give us time to then, and that would be, to be fair, that would be a lot of time. That wouldn't be a lot of time either for us to put together a contract for this because we've never done one before. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind a little bit more time either to get the contract right.
When's the next meeting after March 11th?
The 14th, or no, the 24th. And keep in mind, we've got 2 big meetings in March for a budget workshop. So I really encourage you guys to stretch this out through Jeep Safari. I also encourage that we do keep it to four-wheel drive, the four-wheel drive industry this time, and then see what we get and see, kind of develop the policy, because I also think we have to have a policy if we're going to continue to do this and use this opportunity to see how that's going to be developed. And then have the consideration at our April 28th meeting.
And Mayor, to add to that, part of the reason why Michael and I thought the four-wheel drive might be a good one to pilot is it's a smaller number of potential applicants to choose from, which might make it a little bit easier when we don't have a policy. But for
Right.
instance, if we were to say, I don't know, the official hiking boot of Moab, I mean, there's so many different manufacturers, it would be harder for us to distinguish. Whereas with 4x4 vehicle manufacturers, there aren't as many, and we thought it might be easier to pilot something like that where you'd have potentially a smaller pool of qualified applicants to choose from.
And that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess one of my questions that, and we might get that with the question about proposal exceptions, but I'm wondering / anticipating, because this is specific to vehicles, how that's going to impact, like, is the city going to have some kind of non-compete for all of our city vehicles?
No, this wouldn't impact what we buy at all. It would be, for instance, let's say, because one of the criteria we put in here is affordable housing. So let's say that somebody comes in, and let me use the Sturgis example. I think Harley Davidson, as part of that, built some sort of a plaza. And it's like the Harley Davidson Plaza, and there's some municipal events that can happen there. But what if we did some sort of plaza like that with retail on the first floor and affordable housing above? If we find a corporate sponsor that's willing to do that, it could be the X vehicle plaza, but then there's affordable housing above it. And in exchange for that, they could use some sort of tagline, or they could sponsor that with the city. But that wouldn't impair our ability to go out and get whatever vehicles we need. Because and of course we could also get vehicles from them for city purposes, but we wouldn't. I do want to be clear about this. What this means is we would not only be doing procurements to buy vehicles with this vehicle manufacturer. We may get some vehicles from them as part of it for free or as part of this sponsorship, but it wouldn't impair our ability to go out and buy whatever we need.
Okay, that's helpful.
Any other questions? I'll ask for a motion. Do you have a question, Jason? I heard you take a breath, which usually means you have a question. Sure. You're breathing.
No, I think that I have a feeling that this is a short timeline. Because there's something that probably wants to get announced at Jeep Safari, and if it's possible, I would like to see what that is, and so I would advocate for. I mean, I don't know what Michael's feeling was on it. Like if he was. saying that he needed a longer timeline, or he wanted to, if they could make the shorter timeline work.
There's no announcement that, I mean, it was just the idea. I think Michael's thinking was sponsors might be more interested in getting this under contract so they could make an announcement at Easter Jeep
Okay.
Safari.
Okay,
'Cause
that's good to know.
yeah,
Okay.
so
That
it was
clears
kind of
up.
the opposite thinking of, but I think they're both valid ways of looking at it, because the thought was, if we do it right after Easter Jeep Safari, sponsors may say, it's only a 2-year pilot program. I'll have to wait. I'll only get one Easter Jeep Safari during that 2-year pilot program
Right.
to really play this up.
Okay, so if we were to do it, do we need to, in the motion, state the new dates and stuff? So what are the new dates would be? Issue the RFP still tomorrow?
Summer, wait, Summer has a comment and she'll be doing this. Yeah, come on up.
Post the procurements on the Utah Public Notice or on our public procurement portal. I don't know that I can get it posted tomorrow. Michael isn't even back until Monday. And if there are changes that need to happen, like to me, it needs to be posted next week when Michael's back and then go from there. Nathan, I don't know how you feel about that. I feel like I'm coming in from the outside, but I'm the one that posted. There's some commodity codes that you have to be able to post on our public procurement. So it goes out to the vendors. I don't know how this looks. It's not the same as a standard procurement. So I'm just a little concerned that I don't have all the information to get it posted until Michael gets back.
So
Yeah, I think we have time. I mean, if the council's desire is to have this acted upon at the second week meeting in April,
right.
that gives us almost 2 months. And so I think Michael gets back next week, so we could certainly wait until then to, I think the council's direction could be
To table it?
No,
that
I
we,
think we vote on it. I think what I think we could do, Nathan, is just in our motion, the recommendation would be to come back to the city council on the second meeting in April, the 28th of April. And then all the processes that need to take place before that take place.
That it goes out and then you would have some options to review on that second meeting in April. Okay.
so if I may, what it sounds like you're asking for would be a motion along the lines of a motion to approve the RFP as drafted, subject to changing the council action date to the second meeting in April, and then the due date to April 7th, and then simultaneously authorizing staff to fill in the remaining dates in the RFP after consulting with the city manager.
Yeah. And I guess one final thought with that, with vendors being in town, I don't know if we want to consider doing respondent interviews or questions or something like during G Safari before we finalize the April 7th. I think that the April 7th after Jeep Safari makes sense, but also while potential applicants are here, would we want to have some kind of I'm not sure. Nathan, does this say who would be involved in the decision, in the reviewing the applicants and interviewing them?
Well, it would be the city manager, and then he would make a proposal to the council, and the council would make the final say. If you want to appoint a council member too, so we don't have a quorum to be part of a interviewing or selection committee, we could certainly do that.
Does that have to be in this, or it doesn't have to be in this RFP though?
Well, I mean, it couldn't hurt. I mean, we could just say that in the evaluation section, we could just add that pulling that up. I think it's on page 20. We could just say, well, it's page 5 of the RFP, but I think it would say the city has appointed an evaluation committee consisting of the city manager and whoever else you appoint, who will evaluate proposals based on the following weighted factors and make a recommendation to the council.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think there'd be value in having a council member on there, potentially folks from parks and rec or community development or kind of entities through which this partner would be sponsoring. I don't
It
know.
does say on page 3, on number 4, it says proposals will be reviewed by the city elected officials and staff members.
I think that's
Yeah, and what I'm proposing is if that's too general, we could provide more detail.
I don't think we need the detail. I think we need to wait for Michael to come back and just say, this is what, this is how we would like the committee to look like and go from there. Thanks. So motion, Jason?
Just want to get this right. I'll make a motion to approve the RFP as drafted, subject to the change of application and finalization dates of turning in the applications by city staff and the city manager.
And council consideration at the second meeting in April.
And council consideration at the second meeting in April.
Does that sound good, Nathan?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Motion by Jason. Thanks, Jason. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Miles. Discussion, Jason.
No.
Miles?
No, I'm fairly happy with this. I'm pleased by the idea of extending the application deadline. I think if this really is a pilot program, we might as well give a few more people the opportunity to be part of it. And that way we can get a real understanding of what this may be able to do for our community.
Great. Anybody else? All those in favor? Oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
Well, I'd just say there's a lot of I still have a lot of trepidation about the specifics and the scope with this, and so I am gonna trust the process and be discerning and evaluating things once we get them back. But I think this is a huge opportunity for our community, so excited to try.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Nathan. You're gonna stay on
Pleasure.
though, right?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna stay on for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, good.
I will work on those edits now so I can get them off to summer.
Okay,
Thanks, Nathan.
great. All right. All right. That is the end of our general business today. We next have city manager updates. The only thing that I have from the city manager is if you are wanting to put shields on the new Rocky Mountain lights, you need to go to the city website and fill out the form. You have to include the number of the pole and where you would like the shield. So that is due, I believe, on March 7th, 6th. I can count. So yeah, thank you, Alexi. So anyway, if you want a shield on our light, please make sure that you get, go in and get that done, because after the 6th, it's going to be Rocky Mountain has to come out and do all the shields for us. We don't have the authority to do this. So please, if you're interested in, get your application in or your request in by the 6th of March, because otherwise it could be a lot longer before the shields go in. And then we have applications for the RAP funding that's open, and those applications are due by the 27th. And then new garbage cans are out there. Have you guys seen them? Aren't they
They
awesome?
look good.
Awesome.
So I know they're really, really cool. Thank you to the streets team and the arts department and the Parks and Rec department for getting those taken care of.
Are they all done?
I think, yeah, this first one installed. Cool. Yeah, even from Chocolate, they're doing sidewalks at the same time, so and they're in.
That's great. They look really good. So thank you to the teams that got those in place. It was a lot of work. I think Lisa's put out a video.
Yeah.
So look at that video to see, it's kind of fast forward for how they did it and how they got it done, but they look really, really good.
A reel?
Is that what it's called? A reel? Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, it's not just a video.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if it's TikTok. I don't know what. Anyway,
We don't know.
look, it's on social media. Please take an opportunity to look at it. It's really awesome. Our team did a great job. And hopefully we're gonna get more garbage cans. We'll talk about that at budget because they are expensive. And so that's all I have from city manager, and then we'll go to mayor or council reports. So we'll start with you, Tawny.
Okay, let's see. I have been to 2 meetings for Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District. I had a meeting at the first of the month with the mayor and Miles. Miles instructed us on what 20-somethings call their clothes.
Drip.
And I can't
Drip.
remember drips and their
Yes.
their
The drip
whips.
in the whip.
I said, we don't know anything. Um, that's what I remember from that meeting.
That's good.
I went to a museum, Moab Museum Board meeting, and I just want to put out there that the annual gala is March 27th at the Hoodoo. And it's going to be a 1800s saloon theme.
Oh,
Wow.
So
well, there'll be alcohol there, it sounds like.
dine or dress appropriately.
Right.
That's it.
All right, thanks, Tawny. Caitlin?
Oh. What did I do in the last week? Putting my calendar. I attended several LPC meeting. Well, by several I mean 2 last week and this week. And there's a million bills. Yesterday
Over 900 bills.
yes, I think yesterday they said 979 bills to date. As of yesterday, they only passed 124. So
2 weeks marathon.
yeah, 2 weeks. Even today got 2 emails of bill SOS action calls. So that's interesting. They reported that budget revenues are slightly ahead, which I think is a positive. Thankfully, we're seeing some RFAs, at least in the housing world, but across appropriations that are coming back again a little bit after the initial 5% request reduction. I don't know, I'll let you talk about the bills.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several, I don't know, I can or I don't have to talk about those. But several bills. Outside of that, on the 11th, I attended an LA local homeless council meeting. As a few updates on that. The Pitt point in time count from January came back. They reported 25 individuals for Grant County, which is a little lower than what they received last year, but is much better than previous numbers in several years back. It seems like with a lot of major changes potentially happening with OHS, they don't know exactly what homelessness and OHS and how housing is going to fit into DWS. So a lot of people are waiting for that. The Free Health Clinic is hosting a women's clinic in partnership with BYU, April 20th to the 21st. They are looking for volunteers for that. And yeah, that's probably about it. We received a presentation about vocational rehab services through DWS. And then a week later on the 17th, I attended a quarterly balance of state meeting, which is statewide. And they kind of ran through, there's a presentation from the Youth Action Board. It's kind of general check-in on PIT count and winter response planning. both at kind of state level and at federal level. There's a lot of language and policy changes shifting from this concept of permanent supportive housing to more just supportive housing or transitional housing. And that could come with caps on existing funds that are going towards permanent supportive housing programs. Which might have a significant impact on homelessness programs throughout the state, because 91% of funding that is going towards a lot of projects in the state are permanent supportive housing, probably mostly in the urban areas. And otherwise, they're just watching legislative impacts to structures of homeless services in the state. And I feel like I probably have more things. Oh, I did get coffee with the applicant for Cooperative 1581 impact fee waiver. It's an interesting conversation, which will help to further inform conversations when that comes back to council. And yeah, finally, the Housing Task Force City Subcommittee is meeting tomorrow afternoon. And it's kind of a future consideration. The task force would like to do presentations to city and county to update them on kind of what the task force has been doing and plans to do, and etc. So,
Caitlin, when they come, is it possible to get the information that Johanna's looking for from the county on the housing?
absolutely.
It'd be great if we could include that, kind of put, you know, a little fire under the county to give us the data that we need.
Absolutely.
That'd
Yeah.
be great. I
Yeah.
think that that's an important piece of what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes.
If you think of something else, just let us know before we adjourn.
That's enough for me.
Miles.
Okay, so I attended planning and zoning on the 14th. Aside from them forwarding that positive recommendation for the new development agreement, phase 1 of the Amasa project, there's a lot of discussion going on in the code rewrite right now about uses and definitions and how to build our definitions around like impact. And that way, when we create uses and zones, we're able to essentially allow as much business to move in and really facilitate that, as long as the impact remains the same. So it's not affecting neighborhoods in big ways, but kind of like taking some of the roadblocks out there. So the code update is still ongoing. And right now we're working on like trying to organize different uses and what we think of them and what impacts they have on the surrounding area. And then I went to GWISA. And there's several interesting things that went down with GWISA. So they're still working on they're going into the second phase of the 191 sewer improvement project, going down the highway, upsizing the sewer. Some of the ones that seem to apply to us, that last big snowstorm was drone cloud seeded. So it's really difficult to quantify how much snow would have, how much precipitation we would have received had it not been cloud seeded, but we did get a nice storm out of it. And I learned a little bit more about their procedure in general with cloud seeding and the way that it's done very intentionally so that they're not seeding storms that may rain on our snowpack and cause it to melt prematurely. And in the summer, they're not seeding storms that already come with a flash flood warning or that may be more precipitation than we need. But it's a really interesting prospect to think of them flying drones with these AGI flares into the storm and using those to hopefully encourage more precipitation. But anyways, interesting project, and it was interesting to know that that last big storm was seeded. For people who use them, they're adopting a fire hydrant meter fee, and they're providing meters so that if people need to use fire hydrants for projects, they're able to go to GWISA and receive those. Snow report, we're doing a little bit better than last year. We're at 871 acre feet in Ken's Lake. It's a little bit better than last year. It is still well below average and well below what we need. So it's still going to be a rough year. It's still going to be pretty dry. But hopefully that last storm did good things.
And Miles, just to piggyback on that, is we'll be doing some outreach to the community on conservation this spring and summer. So I've talked to Lexi and Lisa about that. We need to really make sure that people know that they shouldn't be watering their lawns at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
So anyway,
I think
wanted
that
you guys to be aware that we will be doing some outreach to the community on how to save water this year.
yeah, I think that's super important. There's also GWIS is kind of preparing for it. There's some stuff coming down from the state, but essentially there will slowly be more monitoring of private wells and how much they take out of our aquifer, because right now that's essentially not monitored whatsoever. And they also issued a letter of support for the water tower project that we're all doing jointly to the CIB. So that's all going forward on that end. And that's the highlights.
Great. Thanks, Miles. Jason.
I don't have a whole lot. February 9th, I attended an airport board meeting. And also part of the airport board last week and this week we had there was 3 companies that are kind of applying, I think, for the contract, the EAS contract that's coming up in the fall, and Contour, SkyWest, and Denver Air Connection. I've heard that all 3 of them went really well, and I was able to attend the Denver Air Connection yesterday, and it was great. They did an excellent job. And I heard that Contour and SkyWest all did excellent jobs as well with their presentation. So it sounds like we have some really good options coming up in the future for Central Air Service. And then I also attended a travel council meeting. We're kind of talking more about working with our ad agencies for marketing coming up for this summer, and that was about it. So that's all I have.
Thanks. For me, I had a boundary commission meeting, which was basically call to order, approve the minutes, adjourn the meeting. So, boundary commission is to hear any protests for annexations. And as you all know, we had a recent pre-annexation issue, and there really wasn't any legitimate protests. So the meeting was quick, but we did meet. With Tawny, attended a couple Canyonland Healthcare Special Service District meetings. The regular meeting that we attended, or the last meeting we attended, we voted to go ahead and start moving forward with the MAPS master planning. So Melissa Jeffries from the county and Michael Black from the city, and Mel and myself and Karen Fury, and I believe Dan might be involved in that. Dan Cook, our chair, are meeting next month to start moving forward with that RFP to get the master planning going. So excited about that. And be in Washington next week. Jason will be there with the Outfitter Guides group, and we'll be meeting with all of our delegation, the Park Service and the Department of Energy. And LPC, Nathan, if you're on, you can help me out here with some of this stuff. Summer, you need to be aware of you may already be aware of it. It's the web content accessibility guidelines. You're aware of that? That came up. It's something that we needed to implement and get in place. Senate Bill 284. Is this the bill, Nathan, that we were worried about?
Let me get my list. The bill that we were there are a couple bills that we're worried about. Which issue are you thinking of?
That's the checklist.
That one is land use applications on the website. It requires.
Yeah, that's from Representative Tusher. So that
Yeah.
one would require online application forms, I believe, correct?
Yes.
I don't know if that's I mean, that's just more work,
Right.
but that's, and I don't know where that bill will go, but the bills that we were concerned, there was a bill called HB 184 that had some provisions that would allow people to propose their own lot by lot land use regulations. That one I think is stalled out.
Good.
There's a bill called HB 501 that's still in the works that would potentially require us to charge essentially a a water rate fee that would be based on the median income in Moab, and then multiply that by a percentage, which would be I don't know what Moab's numbers will be, but in talking with some of my other water clients, it would be anywhere from $2,400 to $1,400 more per year. That bill has changed a little bit. The issue there is, and this is a valid concern, is the state's concerned that a lot of water providers and sewer providers aren't charging adequate rates. They're keeping their rates artificially low, and therefore they're not setting aside the necessary capital reserve funds. And then when it is time does come due to upgrade their infrastructure, they're just asking for state money rather than charging the appropriate fees. So that bill, as initially drafted, would have required them to everyone to adopt these higher fees. Now it's just saying if you want to be eligible for state funding, you have to adopt fees in accordance with this percentage. Rumor is there's another substitute coming out. I don't know what that says.
Yeah, that did come out today. I looked it over. I think we're looking into what our fee is, because my understanding is if we're already at that 1.5%, we don't have to increase it at all. And I don't know where we're at. Danny's going to check with Marcy and see where we're at with that. But it could have some impacts on us because we are going to the CIB with an application next month on the 24th on the water tank project. We're asking for, I think, somewhere around $3 million for that project. And so this would apply to us. And I specifically asked that question at LPC on Monday, and they said, yes, if you're going to CIB, that does count as a state funded program. So if the one thing about 501 though, is it doesn't go into effect until next year to 1/1/27. So if we get our application in this year and we get it all approved, I think we'll be okay. It won't apply to us, but it's something that I think we need to be paying attention to, Nathan.
Yeah, and everyone's paying attention to it. It's facing a fair amount of opposition. I think the intent is a good one, and that is the state has a large infrastructure bill for water that's about $1.7 billion a year, and that's the attempt to deal with it. I think that the legislature is moving away from increases in income tax or other taxes and focusing more on fees is what they're focusing on. And they had a similar legislation last year that requires Moab and every other retail water supplier to pay a fee to help fund the Division of Drinking Waters regulation program that's based on how much water you use. It's like a per 1,000 gallon fee. So that's definitely the approach that the legislature is taking. I don't know whether I don't know whether this bill will pass or not, but we'll find out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we will.
There's a chance it may end up in interim too.
Right. Let's see, what else do we have? There is a tax notification, House Bill 365, which is notifications for property tax increase. I don't think any of us will be considering any property tax increases. But if we do, there's a lot of property tax bills going on right now. And so I kind of just gloss over those because I think we're okay. One good bill, House Bill 492, the Transportation Infrastructure and Housing Bill, they've increased it to $100 million available for revolving loans, I think, for housing purchases. So that's great. And we'll just see where it goes. Things are going to be moving really fast. And so if we see things that we need to call our legislators, we need to jump on it right away. And I think I'm going to be out next week, so I'm not going to be paying attention. And so is Jason. So Caitlin, we're going to rely on you to alert us if there's something that, and you too, Nathan, I know you've been really good about keeping us in the loop if we need to jump on our legislators about an issue. So.
Well, I was getting ready to send you an email today. If you want, I can hit on a couple other bills, or I can just send you the email.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell us about them now and send an email also.
So I'm sorry, it's HB 147 is the one that would require local governments to provide an electronic option for completing and submitting forms and records. I don't know if we do that or not, but I think we probably could. There's another bill called HB 304 that would require government entities to accept cash payments. I know for some smaller entities that are all electronic only, that they have some concerns about that. There's a bill that I like, HB 3119, that would allow for electronic notarization, which I think would make things a lot easier. There's several bills that would make changes to GRAMA that I don't necessarily think would be too problematic. One, though, particularly if you have a small staff, HB 325 would say that, for instance, if someone were to submit a GRAMA request about Summer wouldn't be able to fill out that response or be involved. And so if you don't have a big staff, you don't have someone else who knows how to do GRAMA and your records officer's at issue, that could be potentially a challenge. There's another issue. HB 363 is a bill that would basically give municipalities a first right of refusal if a prescriptive water right easement holder decides to abandon their easement. So for instance, if you have an irrigation company that has a prescriptive easement and they go through the statutory process to abandon it, the city would then have the ability to essentially file a notice and claim that easement if you were to need it for your own infrastructure. That bill also, however, requires, I think, municipalities to record a notice of any prescriptive easements that the city holds. So if the city has any prescriptive easements for its water infrastructure, we would need to file a notice, which is probably good practice anyway. Several bills on water efficient landscaping. A lot of those are focused on supporting the Great Salt Lake. There's another bill, HB 410, also by Representative Tusher, that would allow someone to alter or repair an existing structure without complying with current code requirements, so long as the changes don't make the structure less safe than they were before. And then let's see. Some additional requirements to the new conflict of interest form that cities are required to file. Let's see. There would be another bill, HB 511, that would require local procurement units to change their procurement procedures to give a preference to local suppliers over non-resident suppliers. There would also changes to your small purchasing policies, your approved vendor lists. There's another bill called HB 533 that would require land use authorities to consider groundwater issues when approving land use applications and issuing land use permits. That bill, I think, needs some work. I don't know how Moab, not having a hydrologist on staff, would be able to do that. My sense is that bill will probably go to interim, or I think it's potentially stalled right now. Let's see. And I think that's about it on the list of things. If you've been following the league's meetings, those are the other bills that I'm tracking that may be of interest to Moab.
There's one bill, HB 477. Land use regulation revisions by Coford. And it requires planning commissions to have bias training. And are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, I think the league has talked about that in their LPC meetings, but as you know, you guys have been exempt from this because you're a smaller city, but other cities have an annual requirement with their planning commission where they need to have 4 hours of training each year. It's something we've talked about just doing voluntarily anyway. Our firm does it for a number of other entities, but yeah, there's quite a few other changes in HB 477. And I expect we'll see additional amendments to that bill before it gets passed.
Okay, great. Any questions? Go ahead, Caitlin.
Well, and then one of the, I think, most notorious is the HB 88, which doesn't allow for public funds to go to services that serve undocumented people, municipal, state, or local funds. I think it's on it's like 5th or 6th sub. At this point. It's Trevor Lee's bill.
It's on its sixth sub, I think, and if I'm not mistaken, I thought I heard that got circled, but I might be wrong.
I've been checking on it today. So I know I've been hearing about this bill since the session started. I'll be really interested and probably pretty sad to see what happens.
It was circled, and so
Good.
I think it could pop up, but I know in one of the legislative meetings I was in today, the thinking is that bill's likely dead for now. There was an article in the Trib about it too that has some more insight on what some of the other legislators are thinking.
And 501 was circled also. That's the
Yeah.
email we got
Oh,
from
was it?
LPC today.
But
So
I think that was circled because the rumor is there's a substitute coming, but it
Right.
could also mean that it's just gonna end up in interim.
Yeah. And then finally, the good news bill that I've been tracking is HB 68, which moves a lot of housing into Goyo. That is in the Senate, looks like as of today, it's on the second reading calendar, so it just needs to move through the Senate. So that one hopefully will happen this week.
anything else from anybody? Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate your update. If you wouldn't mind, if you have an email to send us the bills we need to be paying attention to, that'd be great.
Yeah,
it's-
I don't want to repeat what you guys are already aware of. I'll just send these other bills along.
Okay.
Yeah, just send a list, I guess, since I'll be on duty.
24/7.
Yeah, right. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Tawny. Second by Jason. All those in favor?
Hi.
Right. Motion passes 4-0.